The year is 2006. Harley-Davidson is still manufacturing the Twin Cam 88 and including it in many of its models. Indian is still flailing, having not yet fulfilled its destiny by being purchased by Polaris. And Suzuki introduces a hoss of a motorcycle, a hot rod of a motorcycle, the M109R. But is this motorcycle all that it can be? Or is Suzuki missing an opportunity? Let's discuss. Some could argue that the M109R is a bike ahead of its time. Back in 2006 when it was first introduced, like I said earlier, Harley-Davidson was still fooling around with 88 cubic inch motorcycles. And the M109R was a super big hoss of a motorcycle. But here in 2025, when we are looking at 103s and larger 106 cubic inch motorcycles being the norm in the touring class, is Suzuki missing the bus on a potentially awesome touring bike? There certainly is a market for more power, and certainly the M109 does not lack that power. This motorcycle has been in production for many, many years, so presumably by this point Suzuki has kind of learned its lessons, learned what works in this design, learned what doesn't work in this design, and what some could argue that this design is due for a refresh. And with everything that's going on right now in the Harley-Davidson market, there is a lot of folks who ride Harley-Davidsons, who are in the Harley-Davidson community, who are very unhappy with the company. Some feel that Harley-Davidson has tried to make bigger and better motorcycles, and by pricing themselves and seeing themselves as a premium motorcycle company, they've left a lot of their core fan base behind. And Indian is seeing a little bit of this renaissance as well, although they are also marketing themselves as a premium product. But here's where I think Suzuki and some of the other Japanese motorcycle manufacturers could potentially gain some market share here. All this creates a perfect storm where Suzuki, if they wanted to, could potentially take advantage of a kind of an interesting market situation and revitalize itself as a touring motorcycle company. The 2025 riding season is fast approaching, and for some areas, like in Alabama where I am, you can already ride. I want to talk about a company that I've partnered with to provide you, the Burroughs Point viewer, a discount on their products and services. Daniel Smart Manufacturing has the gear that you need to stay safe on that motorcycle while you're riding around, stay warm in the early spring months, and stay cool during the summer. They've got leather, they've got textile stuff, they've got accessories. So if you're looking to gear up for the 2025 riding season, head over to burrowspoint.com, discounts tab at the top, and there you'll find the link and promo code for Daniel Smart Manufacturing. Use promo code BurrowsPoint at checkout for Daniel Smart to receive 10% off your entire order. Now, as I mentioned before, the M109 has been in production for quite a while. It's a reliable, proven platform, and Suzuki's had time to beta test this in actual real time to try to work the kinks out of this design and to identify what all is wrong with this motorcycle. Now there's a few known defects. I know that there's a transmission issue that can happen on some of the older models as they gain miles, but by this time they've had time to kind of analyze and figure out what all's wrong with this motorcycle. So making the next engineering step concerning this motorcycle shouldn't be a big deal. And mentioned previously, this motorcycle is due for a refresh. So it makes sense at this point in time that they could take a look at this entire design and retool it for a touring platform. Another factor going in Suzuki's favor is back when this motorcycle was first introduced back in 2006, it was a hoss of a motorcycle. It was at the top of the food chain as far as power and raw horsepower. But as we've seen with the new Milwaukee 8 engines, with the Power Plus 116 engines, this engine is actually kind of middle of the line now concerning touring machines. So if you look at it in the sense of a touring machine, it's actually kind of middle of the pack right now as far as size wise. So it's not like you would be introducing a crazy powerful touring motorcycle to a bunch of people who are not already expecting that kind of engine. So taking that M109 engine reliability, plugging it into a touring motorcycle design seems like a natural fit right now with the way that motorcycle engine progression is going. And I'll put it to you like this too. As motorcycle engines get larger and larger and create more and more displacement and create more and more power. There is a certain subset of people who see the size increase of these motorcycles as a diminishing return. As riders of this particular classification, touring motorcycles, get older, they're not necessarily apt to ride a big old 1,000-pound touring machine. So where is the point of diminishing returns? We don't yet know, I guess, but M109 is, like I said, since it's right there in the middle of the pack, probably not a bad place to start from Suzuki's perspective if they're going to start a new bagger dynasty. Another factor in Suzuki's favor is the current state of the touring motorcycle market. So, like I said earlier in the video, Harley-Davidson has been really struggling creating an affordable bike for the masses. By pricing themselves and styling themselves as a premium motorcycle manufacturer, a lot of riders in this classification have felt alienated by the motor company. And Harley-Davidson, not to be outdone by Indian has taken the same kind of tact. They've loaded their bikes up with all kinds of technology, and they're actually priced really high, right up there with Harley-Davidson. So not really solving the problem for a lot of the Harley faithful that are looking at these astronomical prices saying, hey, I can't get into this. So what are the alternatives for folks wanting to get into touring V-twin motorcycles? Well, you've got the last man standing, some of the bikes that I like, the Kawasaki Vulcan, Voyager, and Vaquero. But they're a dated design. Part of the affordability is tied to that. But it is a dated design, and there are some things that you can do, that Kawasaki can do to make those slightly better. But if Suzuki is coming into this with a clean slate and is looking to basically create something that's a competitor for Harley-Davidson and Indian, this is what they need to be aiming for. They need to be aiming for a product that's less than Harley-Davidson and Indian, and that features all the features that these riders are looking for. And what are they looking for? Well, they're looking for power, they're looking for reliability, and they're looking for something that has a familiar sense to it, something that's familiar to them. This is where I think bikes like the Yamaha Star Eluder and the Yamaha Star Transcontinental, all those bikes kind of failed because they were aiming for that super premium. As these manufacturers are finding out anecdotally, I guess that's not where the heart of a lot of Harley riders are. So if I were king for a day, I would design a Suzuki that would come in less than the Harley-Davidsons, less than the Indians, that would have familiar lines and styling in the American V-twin touring style or V-twin bagger style. And then you would want something that's got some familiar features and things like that on there, cruise control, all your creature comforts, but have it in a modern type of setup. You don't have to go all out with the super premium stuff, super premium leather, super premium infotainment, but I do think you have to have something in the way of electronics. But I think that's easily achievable without hitting a $30,000 price point. And if you already have the R&D done for the engine, you already have the R&D done for the transmission and all that other stuff, literally at this point in time, you just need to design a chassis to match what you've already got. So your R&D sink won't be that involved. Your R&D dollar investment won't be that significant compared to creating a new bike from scratch. What's funny is there's been a lot said about the cruiser wars when it comes to some of the Japanese motorcycle manufacturers versus the American motorcycle manufacturers, and I did a video on this where Shade Tree Surgeon had said something along those lines. But I will say this, is that the V-twin touring market and V-twin bagger market is such that it begs the question, in Harley-Davidson and Indian's pursuit to become bigger, badder, better, and all that, and leaving behind some of their fan base, could the Japanese potentially come in here and beat them at their own game? It's a good question. All in all, I think the M109 is a sleeping giant that's basically out there. It's a design that could be capitalized and turned into a pretty awesome touring machine, if you ask me, from Suzuki with minimal investment. And if they play their cards right, if Suzuki markets it the correct way, they go all in on the branding, they go all in, just like Harley-Davidson and Indian have, really give that manufacturer backing to build that manufacturer-led community of folks who love V-twin touring motorcycles and really invest into it. I mean, really nose forward, really invest into it. And maybe do some of this manufacturing, move the tooling and die over to the United States and have it be produced in the United States. If they do that, and if they play their cards right, if they market this correctly, and they design something along the lines of what we were just talking about, they could perhaps make a pretty strong contender in the touring and cruiser market. Now, I will say there's nothing out there that's indicating that Suzuki has any interest in doing this. There's no rumblings, there's no rumors, there's no nothing like that. So absolutely nothing to substantiate where I'm coming from or to even say that the company is even considering this. But it's just my opinion as a motorcycle rider, as a guy who pays attention to the motorcycle market. It's an opening. And it's not just an opening that Suzuki could capitalize on. Any of these manufacturers could do it. Any of these manufacturers could attempt to beat the American manufacturers at their own game. It's just a matter of time to see what happens with this. But anyhow, what are your thoughts? Do you own an M109? Do you think that this type of motorcycle could be morphed into a touring style motorcycle? What are the strengths that you think that the M109 would have as a touring bike? Weaknesses? Are there any other kind of factory defects or anything like that that I don't know about that I haven't mentioned? Leave a comment below. Let's chat about it. Let's discuss. And I'll see you guys on the next video.